another episode of Thanks for Stopping By. So a quick couple things to start off the pod. So I wanted to do some it's October. It's spooky season, baby, and I wanted to do something special for Halloween. To do a special spooky episode of the podcast, and unfortunately, that's still the plan. But unfortunately, that is taking a little longer than anticipated. So, let me put my headphones on here. Yeah, like I said, it's taking a bit longer than anticipated, unfortunately. But hey, we do what we gotta do. So, while that episode is in progress, I figured we could still do something a little spooky today, and something a little fun, but something a little more chill while I'm getting that other thing figured out. So I figured today we could come on here and read through some SCPs. So for those of you who don't know what SCPs are, it's a fictional organization, government organization on the internet. SCP stands for Secure, Contain, Protect. And basically their whole gimmick is that they capture and study SCPs, which are, weird anomalies and places or creatures or items that are sort of mysterious or unexplained. And I'm not deeply versed in the SCP lore. I've been reading them for a long time, but beyond just finding cool ones and looking at them for a little bit, I'm not the person who can give you all the information. However, I have gathered a couple that I think are really cool. But I figured the first one I'd want to start off with was the one that was my introduction to SCPs, and that's going to be SCP-173. Also, just so for those of you who don't know what SCPs are, again, just so you understand what I'm reading, each SCP is basically written like a case file, or a good way I've heard it explained as like a Pokédex entry. So it's not like a story; it's more of a like an archive of information. But SCP-173 is Object Class Euclid. Euclid being the most dangerous. So the classes for SCPs are safe, which means it's a little weird and undiscovered, but not really harmful, hasn't really caused anybody any injuries or deaths. Then the second class would be Keter. And Keter is, it's caused some injuries, it's done some weird stuff, maybe done some property damage, but still being looked at. People can still be kind of in contact with it. And Euclid is just the worst of the worst. Euclid is danger. This thing has killed people, or will kill people, or will severely injure you. And it is very dangerous. And that's, a loose description of the three classes. But SCP-173, Object Class Euclid, 173 is to be kept in a locked container at all times. When personnel must enter 173's container, no fewer than 3 may enter at any time, and the doors to be relocked behind them. At all times, 2 persons must maintain direct eye contact with 173 until all personnel have vacated and relocked the container. Description: moved to Site 19, 1993. Origin is of yet unknown. It is constructed from concrete and rebar with traces of Krylon band spray paint. 173 is animate and extremely hostile. The object cannot move while within a direct line of sight. Line of sight must not be broken at any time with 173. Personnel assigned to enter container are instructed to alert one another before blinking. Object is reported to attack by snapping the neck at the base of the skull or by strangulation. In the event of an attack, personnel are to observe Class 4 hazardous object containment procedures. Personnel report sounds of scraping stone originating from within the container when no one is present inside. This is considered normal, and any change in its behavior should be reported to the acting HMCL supervisor on duty. The reddish-brown substance on the floor is a combination of feces and blood. Origin of these materials is unknown. The enclosure must be cleaned on a bi-weekly basis. So yeah, this is a really short one, but like I said, this was my introduction to SCPs. I also want to say, there's been a lot of issues with copyright stuff lately with like creepypastas and SCPs. So forgive me if I don't credit anybody. It's because no one is credited. I don't see anything about the creator of the SCP here listed. But yeah, this was my introduction to SCP. I think I watched like a top 10 list of SCPs or something, and I had no idea what they were. But I was like, that's fucking awesome, man. And then, obviously, if you don't know, there's actually a indie game based off of SCP-173 called Containment Breach, and that was another big introduction to it for me as well, because it made its rounds on the Let's Play circles and stuff. But yeah, I love that SCP. I think it's a good example of creature SCPs, because like I said, there are many different kinds of SCPs. But I think that's a really good example of creatures. It's just very, it's very, how do I put it? It's just very mysterious, right? Like there's not a lot of information given. It's very vague. They seem to kind of have an idea of how to avoid getting attacked by it, but really not knowing why, right? And I've always loved that sort of thing. It's very Junji Ito to me, as I'm sure most of you who are fans of the show know how much I love Junji Ito. It's very, I love things that are unapologetically spooky and dangerous, but don't really give you explanation. The fear is in the unknown, right? So that's always been a favorite of mine. But the next SCP is actually one I just found out about. There's a podcast I listen to called We Don't Suck by two rappers that I listen to, Kill Bill the Rapper and Rav. If you've never heard of them, go check out their stuff. They are really good artists as well as very funny individuals. But a year or two ago, they released an episode of their podcast where they read some creepypastas and stuff, and they read this SCP. And I recently discovered that episode, and I thought this SCP was super interesting because this one is just so weird. And I love, like I said, again, it's just very mysterious with no explanation. And this is SCP-261. SCP-261, Object Class, Safe, Special Containment Procedures. Any access to 261 must be approved by staff with Level 2 security clearance or higher. Any and all items dispensed by SCP-261 must be recorded, along with any amount of money entered and the amount of time elapsed between uses. Currently, 261 may be used only 10 times in a 24-hour period, with no transaction exceeding the equivalent of 500 Japanese yen. Testing approved by Site Command is not under these restrictions. Items dispensed by SCP-261 should be reviewed by site health and safety officials before consumption. Failure to do so releases the Foundation from any obligation regarding negative effects. Items deemed dangerous or useful to research will be confiscated by site security, with financial compensation provided in proportion to money spent. Description: 261 appears to be a large black vending machine with no front glass panel and a small keypad on the right side. 261 was recovered in Yokohama, Japan. 261 was brought to the Foundation's attention after investigation of an urban legend about a magic vending machine that was circulating on the internet. 261 was found in a back alley behind a large shopping center with a handwritten sign saying "out of order" in Japanese taped to it. 261 has no marks or identification of any kind, and no locals remember when or how it came to be in its current location. Internally, 261 appears to be a basic vending machine equipped to vend food and beverage items. After a key was made and the front door was opened, no abnormal materials were found, and it was determined that 261 has never actually contained any food or beverage items. The keypad, while connected and operating correctly, does not activate any of the dispensing mechanisms. When money is placed into SCP-261 and a 3-digit number is entered on the keypad, 261 will vend a random item. 261 has not accepted any other currency than yen, and with rejected currency being deposited in the coin return slot. It is unknown how these items appear. However, 261 will not operate when the door is open, or when recording devices are placed inside. The number entered on the keypad has no effect on the item vended, nor has any pattern been detected. Items are always some form of snack food, and typically have bright, attention-grabbing packaging. 261 is capable of operation with no external power supply, but operation in this state will cause unstable vending to occur more and more quickly than normal. If 261 is used several times in a short period of time and/or large amounts of money are entered before an item is vended, 261 will start to dispense bizarre items. While still food, their suitability for human consumption is often non-existent. And so these are some of the logged items. 800 yen entered for each item, items dispensed being every 2 minutes, and SCP-261 is attached to power. So items being Coke Zero, a can of Diet Coke, packaging in English. Cheetos, a small bag of Cheetos snack food, packaging in English. Black, a single pack of caffeinated chewing gum, packaging in Japanese. Yan, a simple yan cone with peach dipping frosting, packaging in Japanese. The Meiji Saika company does not produce this flavor. Pepsi Dragon Twist, a can of Pepsi Cola with a trace of fruit flavoring, packaging in English. Flavor identified as dragon fruit. PepsiCo does not produce this product. Dark Side Cola, a can with clear plastic sides, packaging in Japanese. Liquid inside is clear. When opened, liquid appears to react to air and changes to dark black over a period of several seconds. The black coloration looks like billowing smoke and cannot be reversed. Liquid's taste described as cola with something spicy in it. The Little Bakery 7 grain. A small tube the size of a candy bar with a green button, made of aluminum packaging in English. When the top is twisted off, a mass of dough is extruded. Dough contains several enzymes and bacteria that have not yet been identified. On contact with the air, these cause the dough to rise and bake, killing the microbes in the process. Produces a small round loaf of bread weighing 250 grams. Taste described as good, but chewy. Next item is lemon clams. Thick plastic baggie with a plastic tube on the side, containing water and 12 clams. Packaging in Dutch. Following on-package instructions, the plastic tube was cracked like a glow stick. Liquid in the bag flashed to steam, venting from a hole that popped up in the top of the bag. Slightly burning one researcher. Steaming finished after 38 seconds, after which clams were found to be fully cooked and infused with a mild lemon flavor. On investigation, clams match no recorded species. And the next item is Diet Ghost, a can containing an instance of SCP-2107, packaging in English. Testing done on this instance provided similar results to other contained instances of SCP-2107. This marks the first time SCP-261 has vended another SCP object. The next item is labeled Unknown. Small mesh bag filled with small, multicolored pyramids. Packaging in an unknown language. Pyramids found to be very hard and unpleasant tasting, compared to chalk in taste and consistency. When placed in hot water, pyramids open and produce strings that quickly dissolve, coloring the water the same shade as the pyramids. Water has no additional taste, but testing revealed a sharp increase in mineral, carbohydrate, and protein content, with several minerals unidentified at the present time. This content was found to be consistent with the recommended daily intake of nutrients for adult humans. Researcher ingesting the water reported stomach cramps 2 hours later, but no other effects. The next item, also labeled Unknown. Aluminum box with a small glass window on the side and a large round button on top. Packaging in an unknown language. Box is seamless and appears to be filled with small, round animals covered in fur, each with 3 small paws and a single large eye. Pressing the button causes the inside of the box to rapidly become superheated, cooking the small animals alive. Muffled noises and scratching were heard for several minutes during the cooking process. After 1 minute 30 seconds, the front panel opens and gives access to the now cooked animals. Professor Kane volunteered to eat the animals, with no other researchers willing to do so. Taste described as crunchy and very spicy, with a small hint of beef. And the last item, also labeled Unknown. Tall, thin aluminum can, packaging in an unknown language. Opening the can caused a chemical reaction with the liquid inside the can. Liquid was apparently not intended for an oxygenated atmosphere and detonated violently, causing several injuries and killing 2 researchers. Testing discontinued and area cleared. Testing area observed to smell like citrus for several days. All right, and that was pretty much it for SCP-261. So what I really like about this SCP is, I mean, my favorite SCPs are the item ones, because like I mentioned before, there's a lot of different kinds. There's creatures, there's, full places, and then there's, like weird objects. But my favorite ones are the, the objects like this. Something about, it feels very urban legend to me, something about, a weird vending machine that, starts off relatively simple, vending small items for, seemingly at random, and then, going on to vend items that the companies don't make, I think is really cool. However, I think, towards the end, it gets a little too extreme. I mean, I know it's like SCP and, it's supposed to be like really shady, but, I like the idea of just these weird items, oh, this Pepsi drink that Pepsi doesn't produce, or, this like weird thing of lemon clams that like don't necessarily match a species. Like that's all fine. But I think towards the end, when it started picking up more and more, it may have gotten a little too crazy for my personal taste. But beyond that, especially it being labeled object class safe, even though it killed 2 researchers, is kind of weird to me. But I think this is a really cool SCP. I like the mysterious element to it. There's no explanation. There's no way for them to figure out how it does the thing it does. I love that it it's just an object that is gonna remain, kind of unsolved, if you will. So yeah, moving on to our next SCP. This is SCP-1407. SCP-1407. Object Class Euclid. Special Containment Procedures. All instances of SCP-1407 are to be contained in standard security lockers located within Site-77. Personnel assigned to 1407 are to wear ear protection while interacting with 1407. Any subjects found to have been affected by 1407 are to be quarantined for study, followed by termination. Description: 1407 designates a number of headphone sets, commonly referred to as earbuds. Instances of SCP-1407 are composed of ordinary plastic and various metal wires, along with other components normally found in headphones. Instances of 1407 function normally. When an instance of 1407 is worn in the ear of a human subject, it will begin to extrude metal wires into the subject's ear canal. Subjects will not report feeling these wires, but will indicate that they find the SCP-1407 instance extremely comfortable to wear. After a period of 20 to 45 minutes, these wires reach the cochlea and will begin to extend into the pores of the ear canal, physically removing any hairs and replacing them with wires. At this point, the subject will be unable to remove the SCP-1407 instance without severely damaging the ear canals. 1407 will continue spreading through the subject's body, most commonly to the outer epidermal tissue and ocular cavities. Subjects may report rashes or impaired vision. Underneath the epidermal tissue, 1407 will create additional instances of itself by replicating its components with bone, muscle, and bodily fluids. In addition, follicles existing on the surface of the epidermal tissue will be replaced with 1407 wires. Additional SCP-1407 instances will also be created in the stomach, cranium, and intestines, usually growing beneath the outer tissue layer and appearing as cysts or hemorrhoids. It takes 1 to 3 days for an SCP-1407 instance to fully spread through the human subject's body. If the subject is exposed to sound greater than 115 decibels, the speakers within the subject's body will begin to replicate the sound. As exposure time increases, the subject's skin tissue and any matter occupying the ocular cavities will begin to flake off or dissolve as the speakers within the subject become louder. In addition, the number of SCP-1407 instances present with the subject will increase continuously, until the pressure within the body causes them to be violently ejected through the subject's orifices, or through tissue weakened by 1407's effect. 1407 was recovered from a nightclub in Miami, Florida after a DJ suddenly expired during a party. When autopsy reports reached Foundation's assets in the local police department, the body was secured along with one instance of SCP-1407. As of November 14, 2006, SCP-1407 has been classified as Euclid. Currently, 11 instances of SCP-1407 are in containment. And then there's a final addendum. A proposal has been requested by Dr. Blank to use D-Class personnel affected by SCP-1407 to circle around SCP-1009 so that only one speaker needs to be maintained. On-site medical staff are to be present to care for any injuries caused by 1407. Oh boy. All right. Yeah, that's certainly a wild fucking a wild SCP, man. Yeah, like I said, I really like the mysterious objects, and 1407 is no different. I remember hearing about this from an old Kaylee Elise video, who was a horror YouTuber who I used to watch, who's unfortunately no longer on the platform, but she used to do some occasional SCP videos. And hearing about that I was like, that's so fucking wild. The idea of just, because we all have headphones, man. Especially, back then when I heard about it, we didn't have fucking AirPods and shit. Like, everybody didn't have wireless headphones constantly. We all had, fucking skull candies, like little earbuds you put in. And it was so wild to me, the idea of like getting really comfortable and snuggled up while you're listening to your music and just feeling really good. And then, you go to pull them out and they're ingrained in your body now. And then the idea of like the wiring, replicating the sound vibrations through your body and then just violently ejecting your insides out is really terrifying. That sounds awful, and definitely made me stop wearing earbuds for a couple of weeks after I first heard that one as a child. That SCP really freaked me out when I was younger. But yeah, I absolutely love the item ones, and that one is no different. All right, so let's go ahead and move into our next SCP. This is going to be SCP-1993. Item number SCP-1993. Object class Euclid. Special containment procedures. SCP-1993 is to be kept in a safe with voice-activated locks in a standard containment chamber, 5 meters by 5 meters by 3 meters in size. The containment chamber is to have no means of visual output to any other location by either direct or electronic means. Though the chamber should have two-way audio transmission capability with an adjoining testing area. Additionally, the containment chamber is to be stocked with a single surgical table and sterilized surgical equipment before testing. During testing, a D-Class personnel is to enter containment and close all doors, at which point an authorized researcher is to voice unlock the safe from a remote location. Under no circumstances are unauthorized D-Class or any non-D-Class personnel to access SCP-1993 directly. Transportation of 1993 should take place only with the object inside of its safe. No visual record of 1993 is to be created at any time, and any such records located are to be destroyed as soon as possible. Description: SCP-1993 is a human right leg, severed at an angle beginning above the knee and descending to the patella. Examination of the leg has shown the presence of a small tattoo on the exterior side of the ankle depicting a compass with a needle pointing to the southeast. Instances of 1993 have been observed to decay at a normal rate for a severed limb. All humans making visual contact with 1993 will become immediately convinced that SCP-1993 is their leg, amputated from them at some point in the past and replaced with a simulacrum. Affected individuals will have no explanation as to how, when, or under what circumstances their leg was removed, but in no instance has any individual been disabused of the idea once exposed to 1993. If permitted physical access to 1993, individuals will find some manner of removing their own leg above the knee. Documented incidents have seen individuals applying tourniquets and performing amputations with improvised sharpened pieces of metal, shards of glass, or their own teeth, cutting through skin, muscle, and tendon, dislocating the patella, and severing all requisite tendons and the anterior cruciate ligament. There's a lot of big words in this one for a girl here, man. Jesus. Individuals will then attempt to attach SCP-1993 to their own bodies, again using whatever materials are available to them. However, given the complexity of microsurgical reattachment, this will often be carried out haphazardly, with many affected individuals electing finally to connect the limb via topical methods such as stapling or using adhesive chemicals. while exposure to SCP-1993 causes affected individuals to ignore or mentally suppress sensations of pain during the procedure. The massive damage caused by the amputation typically results in death by any combination of blood loss, shock, or injuries caused by attempting to walk on the attached leg. In the event that the patient survives the procedure's immediate aftermath, infections resulting either from general exposure to bacteria or from contact with neurotic tissue will typically prove lethal without immediate medical treatment. Current experimentation suggests that the anomalous phenomenon associated with 1993 transfers from the former leg to the newly amputated one at some point during the procedure. The exact point of the transition is unknown, but former instances of 1993 can be removed from the content chamber without anomalous effect once another leg is left behind. The second leg can now be identified as 1993. All instances thus removed have had a compass rose tattoo on the ankle. Jesus Christ. So yeah, that's... Sorry, I was a little... I was stumbling a lot on that one. That one's so fucking wild to me. The idea of, like, you know, like I keep saying, I know I've said it for everyone, but there's so many different types of SCPs. But the idea that there's just this, like, gross severed leg and somebody sees it and they're like, oh, that's mine. Like, this leg I have that I walked here with today, this is the wrong one. That is my leg, and I have to cut this one off and put that one on. Like, that's already freaky enough, and that's fucking buck wild. And again, like, no explanation. But then even beyond that, to go one step further, then it's not just like, oh, they die and the leg remains a thing. The leg that person cut off is now the new leg. How fucking weird is... And the tattoo transfers. That's so bizarre. Like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Like, that, it's just such a weird thing to think about. And that one didn't necessarily, like, freak me out, but it was more just like, that's crazy to think about. You know what I mean? Like, the idea that this thing, it just fully convinces your brain, you know, and there's no reasoning for it. Again, it feels very Junji Ito, right? It's sort of like the enigma of Amigara Fault, if you've ever read that story, where it's like the people were now convinced, like, oh, this is my hole in the mountain. These people are now convinced, like, oh, this is my leg. Like, there's no explanation for it. They came there totally sane, and now all of a sudden, they're just, boom, like that. They're like, this is my leg, and I'm gonna bite my own leg off, because this one's fake, to then put this gross decaying leg on my body, and then die. It's just such a fucking weird thing to me. Okay, so we have one more SCP I want to talk about. This will be the last one for this episode. And this one scared and currently still scares the fucking shit out of me. And beyond just the description, the fucking images of this goddamn SCP scare the shit out of me. I'm currently, like, holding my phone down with trying to, like, make sure the image of the SCP is not on screen, because this one scares the fuck out of me. And this is SCP-106. So... if you want to, before we continue with this one, if you want a second, please Google a picture of SCP-106. But I warn you, it's very scary. So if you're not prepared, don't do it. But with that being said, let's hop into this one. Item number SCP-106. Object class Keter. Special containment procedures. No physical interaction with 106 is allowed at any time. All physical interaction must be approved by no less than a 2/3 vote from the O5 command. Any such interaction must be undertaken in AR2, maximum security sites after a general non-essential staff evacuation. All staff, research, security, Class D, etc., are to remain at least 60 meters away from the containment cell at all times, except in the event of breach events. 106 is contained in a sealed container comprised of lead-lined steel. The container will be sealed within 40 layers of identical material, each layer separated by no less than 36 centimeters of empty space. Support struts between layers are to be randomly spaced. Containers to remain suspended no less than 60 centimeters from any surface by ELO 2D, electromagnetic supports. Secondary containment area is to be comprised of 16 spherical cells, each filled with various fluids and a random assembly of surfaces and supports. Secondary containment is to be fitted with light systems capable of flooding the entire assembly with no less than 80,000 lumens of light instantly with no direct human involvement. Both containment areas are to remain under 24-hour surveillance. Any corrosion observed on any containment cell surfaces, staff members, or other site locations within 200 meters of 106 are to be reported by site security immediately. Any objects or personnel lost to 106 are to be deemed missing KIA. No recovery attempts are to be made under any circumstance. Jesus Christ. Description: SCP-106 appears to be an elderly humanoid with a general appearance of advanced decomposition. This appearance may vary, but the rotting quality is observed in all forms. 106 is exceptionally agile and will remain motionless for days at a time, waiting for prey. 106 is also capable of scaling any vertical surface and can remain suspended upside down indefinitely. When attacking, 106 will attempt to incapacitate prey by damaging major organs, muscle groups, or tendons, then pull disabled prey into its pocket dimensions. 106 appears to prefer human prey items in the 10 to 25 years of age bracket. 106 causes a corrosion effect in all solid matter it touches, engaging a physical breakdown in materials several seconds after contact. This is observed as rusting, rotting, and cracking of materials, and the creation of a black mucus-like substance similar to the material coating SCP-106. This effect is particularly detrimental to living tissues and is assumed to be pre-digestion action. Corrosion continues for 6 hours after contact, after which the effect appears to burn out. 106 is capable of passing through solid matter, leaving behind a large patch of its corrosive mucus. 106 is able to vanish inside solid matter, entering what is assumed to be a form of pocket dimension. 106 is then able to exit this dimension from any point connected to the initial entry point. Examples: entering the inner wall of a room and exiting the outer wall. Entering a wall and exiting from the ceiling. It is unknown if this is a point of origin for 106 or simply layer created by 106. Limited observation of this pocket dimension has shown it to be comprised mostly of halls and rooms with data expunged entry. This activity can continue for days, with some subjected individuals being released for the express purpose of hunting, recapture, data expunged. Well, fuck. Oh my god. Okay. Sorry. I was like scrolling down to look and see if there was any any more description, and there was a picture of one of the victims, and it scared the fuck out of me. Oh, that legitimately gave me a chill. I hate that. I'm sitting at my desk, and like I'm terrified right now. Like I actually kind of got a chill from that. I didn't like that. Well, yeah. So, there's a little bit more to it. There's some like behavior notes and stuff, but I think you kind of get the gist. This one is very, very dangerous and very wild. It's very cosmic. The idea of like the jumping in and out of the pocket dimensions, the like decaying, rotting skin. It's known as the Old Man, is what I've heard it as. A lot of the SCPs sort of have nicknames beyond their number, and this one is known as the Old Man. And yeah, he scares the shit out of me. I think that's absolutely terrifying. The idea that they're just like, hey, this is so fucking dangerous. So like, don't talk to us. Yeah, it's just that's very scary. Also, I want to say, I think reading that, I think I got my classes mixed up. I think Keter is the most dangerous. So apologies for that, SCP fans. I know they're going to torch me at the beginning of the episode, but Keter, I believe, is the most dangerous one, right? And Euclid is the middle one. So apologies for that. I think, right, because this thing is labeled Keter, and there's no fucking way that this thing is a middle danger. Okay, it jumps into pocket dimensions and eats people. Like, this thing is the worst of the fucking worst. So that's why I'm assuming I got that wrong. So apologies. But yeah, I love this SCP, but it also, like I said, scares the shit out of me. I will see the Old Man in my dreams today because he scares the fuck out of me. So yeah, that's pretty much it, y'all. I wanted to come on here and read some of my favorite SCPs with you guys. You know, it's like I said, it's spooky season, babies, and you know, I love spooky stuff, and SCPs are a cool and very, very spooky and weird community. So I thought it would be fun to come on here and share some of my personal favorites or ones that I found really interesting. But with that being said, I want to say thank y'all so much for joining me on this very special spooky episode of Thanks for Stopping By. Very excited to release my spooky Halloweener episode. Hopefully it comes together. But yeah, thank y'all so much for joining me here today to read some spooky SCPs. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And most importantly, thanks for stopping by.